Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us here today. My name is Olivia Mohan. I'm Head of Learning and Development here in BDO. This is our second in a series of webinars where we explore the career and professional qualification options in BDO. Today, we'll be focusing on Risk Advisory Services, commonly known as RAS, with the aim of helping you understand the options available to you in this area of the business. So I'm delighted to be joined today by Jack Quinn, Manager in our Risk Advisory Services team, and Sean Kavanagh, Business Development Manager for ACCA Ireland. So you're very welcome.
Thanks, Olivia.
So the areas we're going to look at today are what RAS actually is and what it does, what a career in this area looks like in practice, the ACCA training and qualification route, and then how graduates can get started. If anybody has any questions, what you can do is you can pop them into the chat function there, and hopefully at the end of it, we'll get some time to come to those questions and put them to our panelists. So Jack, if it's okay, I'm going to come to you first. For people who are new to this area or maybe have never heard about RAS before, can you tell us a little bit about RAS? What services does the department provide?
Yeah, of course. So I suppose ultimately what our department does is pretty much what it says in the title. So we provide risk and advisory services to a range of public and private sector organizations. I suppose what this means in a little bit more kind of plain English is that we work with organizations to support them understanding and managing the kind of key risks which they face. I suppose like what we do in practice is we help organizations identify, manage risks, assess and strengthen their controls in place to kind of basically how they're mitigating those risks down to an acceptable level. And then also like kind of more broadly, we help people meet regulatory requirements, protect against cyber threats, and then also provide independent assurance to boards, audit committees and management teams that what they're doing is kind of what's expected of them. I suppose ultimately what our objective as a team is to help clients build resilient organizations that are well governed, secure, and positioned for kind of that sustainable success piece. We do provide a wide, pretty diverse range of services across our kind of three core streams. So that's internal audit, cybersecurity, third-party assurance, compliance, governance, support, kind of forensic services, and that kind of spans a huge range of sectors. So like we'll have digital, we have FS, and then we have kind of core RAS, which focuses on public sector, but also like really big multinational companies as well.
Great. Thank you for that, Jack. And really key services there, because more and more we're hearing about those threats and risks, and particularly in the whole kind of cybersecurity area. So really key services. So what does a day in the life of RAS look like practically?
Yeah, I suppose a lot of our time is spent with clients, because when you're trying to understand risks, processes, controls, and then also kind of how they fit into that broader organization, you know, ultimately we have a kind of snapshot in time, whereas they understand the whole system much better than we will coming in to support them with this. So we look to find what's working well, where there may be gaps, and provide that independent kind of assurance, but also that independent perspective as well on where there might be opportunities to improve how risks are being managed. I think that sometimes you can get kind of siloed into what you're doing, and it might be really good, but you might not see something that someone would be coming in from a third party will. I suppose there's also a lot of collaboration within our team. So because we provide so many different services, you know, we have different areas of expertise. So you're drawing in kind of people as you need them for specific projects, getting different perspectives on what good looks like, and then also kind of what your solutions to that will be as well, and how to communicate those solutions as well, which is a really big piece for the work we do, especially being outsourced. One of the things I personally find most interesting about RAS is that, you know, we rarely do the same thing twice. Even when projects will focus on like really similar areas, or it might even be the exact same review with two different organizations, ultimately everyone approaches risk and control that like a little bit different. So we have to be flexible and understand why one approach might work for, you know, one organization, but it doesn't for another, and making sure that we're matching the organization's risk profile as well. I suppose the other piece which kind of factors into a day-to-day life for our team is that like supporting more junior people on the team. I suppose we have a fair number of trainees in our team doing their professional qualification. That includes a couple of people who are doing ACCA, and we really focus on getting people involved in projects from an early stage so that they have that in-depth understanding of the whole process. And what that kind of comes with for me as a manager is spending a lot of time talking through what they're doing in their kind of day-to-day work, answering questions on kind of helping them understand maybe some of the nuanced detail, but also then how it fits into that bigger picture. I suppose the benefit I have having done ACCA as well and started with BDO myself is that I also get that opportunity to share my experience and kind of support people doing their exams, which I know when I was doing the exams, I felt that was really valuable. So it's kind of nice being able to see that come back full circle and giving people the support as well.
Great, thank you for that. So a really broad range of services there and lots of opportunity for people to learn and grow. And you touched on qualification there and you having done the ACCA. So what qualification do you need for a career in RAS? Is it just ACCA or are there options there for people?
Yeah, I suppose with RAS, there's no one size fits all, because we have such a broad range of services. We also have that really broad range of expertise. So like, I know we have people who have, say, compliance backgrounds. We also have people who've done like ACCA accounting, the chartered internal auditor exams, and then also ACCA. So I think that we get that nice blend of different backgrounds. I know for me personally, I chose ACCA because I felt like it aligned to what my understanding of what RAS was at the time when I was having that kind of the consideration of what I wanted to do. I also had conversations with like family friends who gave me some pretty sound advice that ACCA is that really broad syllabus. So it gives you a good understanding of finance, governance, risk, and also business operations, which fortunately fit well with what RAS do. Looking back, I suppose that's probably one of the things I value most about the ACCA one is that in RAS, you're not just looking at financial information. You're trying to understand how organizations operate, but also how its processes, controls, how risks are managed. And I felt that with ACCA, the kind of breadth of the subjects that you study really helped me develop that wider perspective.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. So Sean, we'll bring you in now if that's okay. So Jack obviously has spoken a little bit there about his route and taking the ACCA route and his reasons for there. But can you talk us through the qualification overall, please?
Absolutely, yeah. So ACCA is one of the world's leading professional accountancy qualifications. It has members and students across more than 180 countries around the world. It's designed to equip people with both the technical accounting and finance knowledge, and also the professional skills that employers are looking for. To become an ACCA member, the students are expected to complete a combination of exams, an ethics and professional skills module, and then an element of practical work experience. What I particularly like about the ACCA route and what's quite popular is that it's not just about passing exams, it's about developing into a well-rounded finance professional who can add value to the business from day one. The qualification, as Jack mentioned, kind of covers a broad range of areas such as financial reporting, audit, taxation, business strategy, performance management, as well as leadership, giving students that broad foundation that can open doors to a wide range of careers within practice, industry, financial services, and beyond that.
Great. And I suppose what makes it different? What makes ACCA different from other qualifications? Because we heard Jack list off a number of other ones there. What makes it different, and why should students consider this route in their career?
Yeah, so one of ACCA's biggest strengths is its flexibility. So you can begin your journey from many different educational backgrounds, and you can progress at a pace that works for you while gaining that kind of valuable work experience. The qualification is also highly regarded internationally, so it offers fantastic career mobility. Even if someone wants to start their career in Ireland, the ACCA designation is recognised globally by over 180 countries. Another key differentiator is as Jack mentioned, the breadth of the qualification. ACCA doesn't prepare students for just one specific route. It develops finance professionals who understand business, technology, strategy, and ethics, which means the graduates from ACCA have a wide range of career opportunities available to them. So for anybody starting out and unsure exactly where their career will take them, ACCA keeps those options open while building highly transferable skills that employers such as yourselves really value.
Oh, great, thanks for that. Coming back around to you, from an employer perspective, what supports does BDO have in place for its people pursuing the ACCA qualification?
Yeah, I suppose from my own experience, I personally found there was a lot of support available when I was doing the qualification and the exams. I suppose obviously we have access to learning partners who provide really good lectures, revision support for each exam sitting, which I found was really helpful. But also, you have other people in the business who are doing it as well, which you can kind of rely on for a little bit of advice or support as you need it. I also found that the study leave entitlements are really generous, which takes just a little bit of pressure off when you're trying to balance work commitments and studying. For me anyway, it was the first time that I was having that real balance of that work and study life. Having dedicated time to focus on exams does make a huge difference, and like really allows you to get into that exam mindset for the 2-3 weeks beforehand. More broadly as well, I know that we also work closely with ACCA, hosting kind of employer community events, which focus on kind of supporting students through their journey and also keeping up that internal connections with other ACCA members once you've actually qualified, which I think is really good.
Okay, great. So a lot of support in place there, which is great to hear. So Sean, coming back to you, BDO are an ACCA Platinum approved employer. Can you tell us what this means for our members and our students?
Yes, absolutely. So ACCA's approved employer program, we recognize organizations that demonstrate a really strong commitment to developing and supporting ACCA students and members. So the Platinum status is the highest level of recognition which BDO has within that trainee program, and it's awarded that to employers that have robust training and development program and support structures in place for their people. For students, it's incredibly important because pursuing a professional qualification alongside a full-time role, as Jack mentioned, can be challenging. But being with an employer like BDO means that you're joining an organization that understands intimately that ACCA journey, actively supports individuals through it, and whether that's through study support, through mentoring, the practical experience opportunities that you have, or professional development. From an ACCA perspective, Platinum approved employers like BDO can demonstrate that they invest in their talent and create an environment where future professionals can thrive.
Okay, great. And you mentioned future professionals there, and I suppose that's a good juncture for me to bring this in because it's a question we always get asked. With all the developments in AI and the other emerging technologies, the changes that are coming into the workplace, how does ACCA evolving to ensure that students are developed in these skills and that they will need for the future?
That's a great question, and it's one that we get quite frequently. And it's a great question because the role of that accountant is evolving so rapidly. But at ACCA, we're constantly reviewing and refreshing the qualification to ensure that it reflects the needs of modern business. While technical accounting knowledge remains essential, today's finance professionals, as everybody well knows, also need skills in areas such as digital technologies, data analysis, critical thinking, communication, and strategic decision making. What AI is doing is changing the nature of the work rather than replacing the need for professional judgment. Employers are increasingly in wanting and needing people who can interpret information, challenge assumptions, understand risk, and communicate those insights really effectively. That's why ACCA places a really strong emphasis on professional skills, ethics, and business acumen alongside those technical expertise. We want our students to not only have that accounting knowledge, but graduate with the capabilities needed to succeed in a technologically enabled workplace and take on leadership roles in the future.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. So coming back to you in a career in RAS, what skills do employers look for? And I think this has actually come in, it's a question we had ready to talk about here, but it has actually come in as a question in our Q&A as well. So timely for you to talk us through the skills that employers look for in graduates.
Yeah, I think for RAS, technical knowledge is obviously valuable and important for graduates, but like ultimately we understand that you're not coming in as like fully polished products. I say products as if it's assets, but you know what I mean. I think we also place a lot of the value on those kind of softer skills, which Sean mentioned there about professional skills. Being able to interpret complex information, and then also in the context of the review that you're doing as well makes it really important. I suppose if I was to try and narrow it down a bit, I'd say that kind of 3 key areas for me would be like curiosity, communication, and then a willingness to learn. I think from like a curiosity perspective, having that genuine interest in how a business operates, understanding what's really happening on the ground, just allows you to ask the right questions and get to the root cause of issues, which I think is where we really add value for clients. It's not just taking things at face value or, giving inputs or recommendations that don't align with what their perspective of themselves are and what direction that they want to travel. I suppose communication kind of filters in with that as well, which is really equally important. I suppose because we spend so much of our time working with clients, discussing kind of the areas we might suggest improvements, and then explaining kind of really complex issues to a variety of different audiences. So, management might want a bit more detail than an audit and risk committee or a board. So being able to communicate clearly and build relationships across the different stakeholders becomes a really key part of the role. I suppose the last piece there being like the willingness to learn and adapt is obviously really important as well, because different organizations manage risks in different ways. We have to be open-minded and be able to take that step back and understand what works for that particular organization. And then also factor in things like, the regulatory requirements for them and whether or not they're being met, rather than just assuming a one-size-fits-all approach. I suppose ultimately for graduates, it's important to understand that nobody expects you to know everything on day one. What really stands out is someone who's engaged, asks questions, takes feedback on board, and is really keen to learn.
Great, thank you for that. And then what opportunities are there for graduates in this area, in the RAS area?
Yeah, I suppose I think there's really fantastic opportunities for graduates coming into RAS. We're a growing team operating in an area that's like constantly evolving, because organizations will always face new risks or regulatory requirements with things like AI coming into it, or new challenges coming up with cyber or even just kind of business operations. So I think there's always something new to learn and always new opportunities to get involved with. I'd say our team also offers like a really great variety of work to graduates. We make sure that they get exposure to each of the kind of 3 different streams within RAS, and as well as a wide range of clients, be that public sector, private sector. And I think that getting involved in those projects early on, it just helps you build that broad skill set, but also then it allows you to figure out what you enjoy and where your strengths lie, so that you can kind of narrow down where you want to build that experience. I suppose from our perspective, we are also a pretty flexible team. So generally speaking, like I know people in my team have come up and said that they have an interest in kind of a particular area, and then we'll kind of work to make sure that they get exposure to that area and build experience in that space to see if it's something that we can kind of help their career develop that way. I suppose the last piece then is just kind of reiterating that our team is growing pretty quickly. So I don't think there's any shortage of opportunities to take on new challenges and develop your career over time and kind of map out what that looks like for you as well.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. And so I suppose finally, what advice would you give to students who are considering ACCA, but they're unsure which career path they want to pursue?
My advice would be to not put too much pressure on yourself to have your entire career planned out from day one. In reality, very, very few people do. One of the biggest advantages of ACCA is that it gives you a broad foundation across finance, accounting, businesses, strategy, and technology, which means it keeps a lot of doors open for you. You might start your career thinking you're going to really love audit and then discover a passion for advisory or tax or corporate finance. Or about an industry further down the line. And it's why employers like BDO are such great places to begin your professional journey. You gain exposure, as Jack mentioned, to different clients, to different sectors, to so many different experiences, and it helps you figure out what interests you and where those strengths really do lie. So my advice would be to focus on developing strong skills, gaining experience, and staying curious. You don't need to know exactly where you're going to end up, but ACCA gives you a qualification that can evolve with your career, and provide opportunities both in Ireland and internationally as your ambitions kind of develop.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. So thank you very much for that that information, gentlemen. Very insightful. I suppose it gives us a good overview both of RAS but also the ACCA qualification. We have a couple of questions in here. We have a question about the skills people could learn before they start. So I think, Jack, you probably addressed that already. And the other one is probably a little bit recruitment related. So I'm happy to answer this. So what other courses beyond ACCA could someone do to improve their chances of being employed by BDO in a risk and advisory? I'm currently doing strategic ACCA papers. So I suppose in relation to being advised by BDO, we don't just look at the qualification that someone is doing, because generally people start with us and they go through a trainee contract, which is when they do their ACCA qualification. But we'll also be looking at what have you achieved in your undergrad or your master's, and then what skills and qualities do you have that fit into our own recruitment process. So I would certainly suggest that when we open our graduate recruitment, which opens on the 25th of August, that you apply through our application process, putting in all the information that's required there. Jack, I'm not sure if you have anything to add to that in relation to doing other courses before someone joins, or is it better to wait until somebody is in the door and look at what is it that would be applicable to the role that they're in?
Yeah, I suppose like if there's any specific area that you think would be that you'd be really interested in, obviously if you can get a leg up on kind of on that side of things, if like, for example, if you were really interested in data analytics, obviously that's not going to hurt your chances. But I suppose doing something that you're not interested in, I don't think that makes a huge amount of sense. I think you'd be better off to get in the door, kind of get your footing underneath you, and then go, oh, actually, do you know what? I think this would be a really good, valuable piece or area for me to expand into, or try to kind of look at potential additional qualifications.
Okay, great. Thank you. And the next one's probably for you again, Jack. What's the best way to get into being a forensic accountant as a fresh graduate who plans on doing the ACCA exams?
Yeah, I suppose a lot of it comes down to kind of similar piece. I know we have a forensic wing of kind of our team that does look at forensic services. And I suppose if you were to join our team and express an interest in that, we will do our best to make sure that you can kind of be brought in on that. I think that's kind of based down in Limerick at the moment. But generally speaking, from my experience, anytime I've asked or kind of identified an area that I'd be interested in, there's been no hesitation or no issues to kind of bring people in and get involved in things.
Great, thank you. And you again, Jack, what are the three streams in RAS?
Yeah, so I suppose the three streams are at a very high level. We have digital, we have FS, and then we have what we call core RAS. So digital includes kind of like that detailed cybersecurity piece, and then also kind of a lot of third-party assurance. FS is working with financial services sector clients that would be very highly regulated, and that covers a range of different things, including like CBI requirements and some like big e-money institutions and things like that. And then core RAS, I suppose we kind of clean up that's where I am myself. We kind of clean up on everything else. So we look at public sector, we also look at kind of big multinational companies, and then we also do a bit of work with pensions as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. So that's all the questions that we have in. Hopefully we've answered them for you. So I'd just like to thank you all for joining us today, and thank you to Jack and Sean for taking the time. I hope you found the information insightful if you are considering a career in RAS and or the ACCA qualification. Watch out on our social media channels, because we have another webinar next week where we'll be joined by someone from the Institute of Chartered Accountants Ireland to talk about the ACA exam route, and also from one of our partners in BDO in the audit stream. So watch out on the channels there and you'll get the information on that. If anybody has any further questions, they can be directed to info@bdo.ie, and we'll send them on to Jack or Sean and get back to you with the answer for that. Okay, guys, thank you so much for taking the time today. And that's the end of our webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Olivia.